Do you know an opportunity when you see one? And more importantly, are you willing to take that risk? Saying yes led this service business owner from a 9 to 5 job to a 7 figure business. There's a saying in entrepreneurship: you've got to jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down. Today's guest did precisely that. With no experience in marketing, he quit his job to launch a marketing agency. His journey to a 7 figure business isn't an overnight success story. Most businesses are not. A success story is made up of time and work that goes unseen. Tune in to hear how this small but mighty agency owner delivered a marketing service he had no idea how to deliver, and the ups and downs that got him to 7 figures. Welcome to the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you're a creative consultant or agency owner who wants to know what the roller coaster ride really looks like to grow your business from one to many, you're in the right place. My guest and I pull back the curtains on the realities of growing and running agencies of different sizes and what it takes to build a team. And if you're anything like me, you want more than the highlight reel. You want to learn from the mistakes of others so that you can stop short of making the same mistakes. I'm your host, Audrey Joy Kwan. I spend my days as a coach and consultant to multiple 6 and 7 figure agency owners. For the last 7 years, I've been behind the scenes helping people grow, lead, and operate small but mighty agencies. Here at the Small But Mighty Agency podcast, we'll uncover what works and, equally as important, what didn't work to get these business owners to where they are today. Hi, John. Welcome to the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. I'm excited to have you here today because you've got an amazing story. But before we get into that story, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your agency?
So my name's John Vuong. I started an agency back in 2013 called Local SEO Search. The premise of starting the agency was to serve a market where business owners wanted to feel comfortable working with someone they can trust to take them off that journey of digital marketing and getting a good solid ROI. So that's how I started. And I really wanted to give that home feel, personalized touch to give the best value for business owners so that they feel comfortable working with someone that is not a big brand out there in the marketplace today.
You started your agency 10 years ago. It's been a solid 10 years for you. Now, what were you doing before you started your business?
So I went to school for business finance, but right afterwards, I was working in advertising sales. So 10 years of advertising sales in small, medium size agencies to then a larger corporation called the Yellow Pages Group. And I was a part of a large sales organization. So I learned a lot of training techniques on how to build connections and connect with business owners and get them to advertise as much as they can with the medium that I was representing. So I met a ton of business owners, and that's who I resonated with mostly.
You have an SEO agency, but no SEO background. Your experience is in sales. Share how you decide to launch an SEO agency.
So because I was working with thousands of business owners in the course of 10 years, I really got to connect with them. I really got to understand their values. What resonated with them mostly were strong foundations of family, what they took care of, which was community, but also provided an excellent service to their clients. And that's what resonated with me when they advised me that when they were spending this X amount of money with Yellow Pages, they were frustrated. They were not getting the same ROI, return on investment. They were frustrated that there was such a high churn in terms of sales reps at large corporations. So they didn't build that connection with a sales rep. And I wanted to be that person that they can trust and turn to provide that ROI, to provide the best customer relationships and customer service for a long-term end period for them moving forward.
What you're describing is the servicing side that your clients want to see when they're working with a marketing provider. And you were able to translate that learning into how you run your agency. From there, tell me more about why you chose SEO as your service niche.
Maybe 10 years ago, Google started appearing as the number one search engine in the world where people can find things quickly, fast, and at their fingertips in real time. So I knew there was an opportunity where if I just presented a story where business owners can then be found, similar to how Yellow Pages was back in the day, to how now today people are now searching. And I felt there were different ways people can advertise digitally, paid ads, search engine, through the PPC, to then the organic on the map, to then all the social media content marketing. But if you earn your way, and this was all from just discovering the behaviors I was using when I was searching and seeking out business owners and products and services, as well as speaking to hundreds, if not thousands, of these business owners, letting them tell me how their customers were seeking out their services and their brand today. I realized to then start an agency to cater towards them.
When you were working for Yellow Pages, you saw the opportunity as a salesperson, not a marketer. So the leap is that you had no experience delivering SEO, but jumped in anyway.
That's correct. Yes, I had sales experience for 10 years. I was able to market myself to represent a brand and tell my story and connect with them to then retain and acquire new customers. Throughout that time, my background was never technical content, any coding, anything to do with understanding how search engines work. I just knew that there was this market of business owners that wanted a good fit agency to transition them to this digital world through SEO. And I wanted to be a part of that. And that's how I started this company, acquiring customers, not knowing how to do SEO, but just doing what my strength was, which was selling at the early stages of my infancy of starting the business.
So tell us a bit more about that. Tell us about how you started a business with a service that you did not know how to deliver, and how did it get off the ground?
First couple years were challenging. I had to absorb a lot of content. I was reading, I was going to a lot of conferences, I was meeting a ton of other experts and networking, and I was out there selling. So my strength was acquiring customers on a long-term commitment so that there's recurring revenue. And this is what I figured out while working at Yellow Pages. To have a sustainable business, you need a recurring business model where people will pay you monthly to then stay long term. So I went out there, and the hardest thing is to acquire new customers that are on a term commitment, right? So I was able to do that, harvest some good relationships, and get them to commit to me personally. The challenge was then delivering on the promises, delivering on my commitments. I made a ton of mistakes, over promising early, over not understanding what the scope was, the landscape, the cost, the drivers, because I made a ton of mistakes. But as I learned over the years, I refined my systems, I refined my process, and got better at understanding who I wanted to cater towards at what price point, etc.
You make an excellent point. When you don't have the processes down for delivering a service, you could be promising the client one thing, and then when you take it back to the contractor or your team, they are saying what you promised can't be done in that time frame or within that budget. What were some steps you took to ensure profitability and efficiency?
So the first couple of years was very stressful. I was working 14, 16 hours trying to figure out what I was doing in the first place. Selling a product that I didn't even understand terminology, let alone going out there and figuring what works, how to do it, and how to make it profitable for myself and making the clients retain where they would get a good return. So as the months and years went on, I was hiring, firing, and making tons of mistakes on that front, hiring, firing clients, and making tons of mistakes on pricing and promises and trying to figure out the systems and processes, the platforms that work, because I was trying to educate myself on how this whole world existed. Because it's, again, when I go to these conferences, these people have been doing it for 5, 10 years. So they already understand what needs to be done. Me coming brand new, I was curious, but I was okay to learn from ground up. So I took on a challenging role of being like brand new from, say, university or college without experience. So I was very much a sponge early days because I had to be. In order to be successful, I had to be vulnerable and let people in on, just me being who I was, someone new, not knowing, and people were able to assist me throughout my entire journey.
I think you're highlighting that it's hard to start an agency business when you don't know how to scope the work. Your confidence in your sales skills and building relationships has worked well for you. Building relationships and sales can only go so far when the client doesn't get a return on investment. How did you solve that when things weren't going the right way?
Yeah, so I had a lot of churn early on clients because I was over promising a ton. I was underpricing myself because I didn't even know what the pricing models were existing and who I wanted to position my agency and brand and my value prop for, right? So it took me a lot of time to adjust, to understand who my ideal avatar is, and just going after figuring it out, right? Like I made so many mistakes. And if I look back, these are the best mistakes because they were all learning curves. Like nothing was so detrimental to me because I already had a strong base of recurring revenue. And that really took me as I grew the business to then be able to hire better skilled, better operators, better, systems people, better salespeople, because that's how you have to grow. Like I was bootstrapping everything. I didn't really understand how to run a business, let alone manage people, manage customers.
Starting to build a seasoned team is a huge tipping point. Do you recall at what point in your journey you felt you had a better handle on growing your team?
Yeah, I think hiring is a huge skill set that it takes time to harvest and make a ton of mistakes over the many years as well. Because as you grow in the life stages of your business, you require different skill sets and people along those certain stages of your business growth. And as I matured and I realized where my gaps were, I was able to fill in the people at that specific given time. So me being a father, I wanted to relieve my time from being in the business all the time, right? I had to free up time. So I had to find great operators, great leaders to fill the major gaps that I was putting in time and effort and energy for. So I would say 5 years into it gave me a good realization of where I wanted to be and what I wanted to do, because I now had a lot of skill set in the SEO nitty gritty, right? Of understanding terminology, the people, what required to get a successful campaign off the ground. But then it was trying to get good people at the right stages and the right places to really grow the business.
Did you know that I have a coaching program called the Mighty Pod Model? In the High Touch program, we help our clients go from solopreneur to an agency owner so they can gain more freedom by having a service business where client work isn't dependent on them to scale. Maybe you started as a solopreneur with 0 people in your business. Eventually, you bring in an assistant and contractors, but you continue to hold on to the strategy and direct communication with your clients. Before you know it, you're at capacity. So what happens if you want to grow bigger? Meet the Mighty Pod Model. The Mighty Pod Model isn't just a business model. It's a high-touch coaching program that helps you go from solopreneur to agency owner with a profitable, streamlined, and strategic roadmap. If you're feeling like the bottleneck in your business, download our free Mighty Pod Model cheat sheet. Go to audreyjoyquan.com/free resources. That's AudreyJoy kwan.com/free resources, or click the link in the show notes right there in your podcast app to get the free Mighty Pod Model cheat sheet. Back to the show. What would you say to someone who is at that place in their business where they are working a ton of hours and they might not have that much flex in money to go hire someone who is super experienced? What would you say to that person?
Hire slowly, but strategically, but start hiring and making mistakes. Because there's never going to be someone as good as you with as much skill as you, or else they'd be operators themselves. So acknowledge where your gaps are and be okay and happy with progression. Do not expect them to learn things overnight, but if you have a roadmap for their growth and letting them in on this is my expectations within 3 months or 6 months. And I want to mold you to then be able to capture more responsibility and duties so that they can see progression in your entire ecosystem, in brand and value and culture. So it takes time to understand that because you have to be self-aware of what you're looking for in your overall vision for your brand.
So, who was your first major hire?
I think for me, I was very fortunate, but again, it's more spreading and casting the net, right? So I was hiring for any role in every role because I didn't know what role I needed, right? So from SEOs, content writers to technical web developers, graphics, you name it, I was hiring like mad. I didn't know what I was looking for. So after a couple hires and understanding these people and their skill set and them not delivering, or they were delivering and they were charging a lot or whatever, I just went out there and made tons of mistakes. I'll be honest with you. My biggest hire, and still the hire that I really look at as my number one or two person on the company, is my operations manager. She came on early. I gave her a lot of flexibility. I was completely transparent and honest, and she's been with me for the last 9 or 10 years. And for me, it's we've grown together. We've got to learn and know each other, and we're on the same page. So it's all about alignment and transparency and authenticity, right? So she's very open, I'm very open, and we're honest. So that makes a world of difference in terms of trying to find the right people throughout that entire journey.
Before you got to a place where you felt you were building the right team, give us an example of how costly some of the mistakes were.
So I'll be honest, I've been profitable since I started the business because I was a sales rep. So the first couple months, I was already, a couple hundred grand in, like I was like green, right? So for me, that gave me assurance that I can make a lot of mistakes. Although I would have probably helped those clients that I sold to be more transparent and honest, but I wasn't aware of my mistakes that I was going to make, right? So but I was transparent. I told them like this is what I would value my services at this time, but in 5 years time it will be a lot more because I'm early, I'm starting. But a lot of them actually stuck with me over the years. And, for me, just being transparent in that sense allowed them to have a sense of honesty. I think we connect in that scope. And then, of course, the return got better over the years. At the beginning, I made a ton of mistakes. So the return was not as good as they are today, for sure.
You spoke about not knowing how to properly scope the work with your clients in the first years. So when you were out there selling, how did you make the estimations required to stay profitable?
And that's the other thing. I didn't really understand how many dynamics of touch points and what kind of service offerings I wanted to provide, right? Like, did I want to go full service? Did I want to just do content? Do I only want to do social? Link build? Do I want to do, different ads? Do I want to include some development work? Like all that, I had no idea. And clients don't really understand either. So for me not knowing and them not knowing was actually a good thing, as opposed to who I'm targeting now, someone that's much more engaged and educated and informed, but they also demand a lot more from you, right? Because they expect a lot more. So you need to present that in a very well systematic, processed way.
Yeah. What it sounds like to me is the transparency up front when you were starting your business was key to you actually gaining the client. So you were very clear that you were not the SEO guy, but you knew that there was an opportunity in the market for this and that they could get in front of it. And that's what you were really selling, them getting in front of this opportunity. And the rest was just trust you because that's what you're really good at is building that trust and being that transparent person. And so, flash forward to today in your business. Can you just share with our listeners today, just what does your sales look like today?
Yeah, so we're seven figures. We're a growing agency. We manage hundreds of clients across Canada, and it's fun, right? We actually enjoy working with the right type of businesses in the right time. I think they need to be aware of when they need to seek out an SEO agency. I don't want to oversell them. I need them to come to us knowing they have a problem. Early days, I had to sell them that they had a problem. But now they're seeking us out, and we're able to vet to make sure that they're in alignment and they have the same values as we do. Because we don't take on every single person that reaches out to us. We actually are able to vet and make sure that we're on the same page and at the same stages of their growth trajectory, and they're looking at growing and scaling, etc.
Yeah, I think the market is smarter now when it comes to SEO. Perhaps 10 years ago, when you said SEO, many people are like, what's that? Nowadays, you talk about SEO and people are like, yeah, I need that because people know that if they want to be visible on Google, there's no escaping that type of marketing work that needs to be done. You mentioned that you service hundreds of clients now, which means you have a fairly big team. How big is your team?
We have over 40 staff members.
Okay, so you're still a small business. Tell me a bit about what it's been like to train your staff, especially during the pandemic where everything had to be remote. Tell me a bit about training remote staff.
So this is an interesting story because when I was working at Yellow Pages, I was actually home based. I think the sales reps had the flexibility to work from home or at the office. So for me, I had a book of business and I learned remotely. They had all this training and I was now equipped and educated on this entire digital world, right? On how things can be communicated, training live online. So that's how I built this agency. I hired staff remote. I hired and trained people remote. And I was able to just make sure that there's software to track, there's accountability, operations software, just everything can be done digitally. So being remote allowed me to have the experience to then transpire this whole business to be remote itself.
Mhm. When we talk about training staff remotely, do you have a team in place right now that onboards new people? Do you have particular systems and processes that you can share? Maybe give us some concrete examples.
Yes, definitely. So the last 5 years, we've been putting together a SOP deck for every single process, right? From onboarding to client intake to retention, everything. And we've gotten better in terms of onboarding our new staff, on training them, to then going through the entire module and systems and doing some ongoing monthly training to quarterly and goal settings, etc. And we do everything via Zoom or any of these online digital platforms like Slack. And we also then do video training as well. So we always have a video series in terms of onboarding to then get people accustomed to understanding, and then they can actually go back and watch it in their free time, or if they didn't understand certain things. We also have a lot of written SOPs as well, because people absorb content differently from video to written. And then, of course, that ongoing engagement. So for us, we've really refined our entire system, right, on how to nurture our staff, because I feel the number one thing in order to grow any business is your people.
Mhm.
If you take care of your people, your clients will be happier because they're more committed than ever to support your vision. And that's the one thing I really invest in, which is my people within the company.
100% we're on the same page. Investing in your people is the most critical part of growing a business. When it comes to training, repeating things over and over again, whether 5 people or 40 people, is time consuming. So investing time to create training resources pays off. When did you start taking training resources seriously and investing energy into building them?
I would say 5 years ago, I not only started that process, but now I'm getting my staff to create their own videos because every couple months they learn something new. They learn new tactics, they learn new software stack. They're trying to uncover new tricks and tips and whatnot, and then they share it amongst the team. So it's more collaborative than ever, and we have fun, right? So it's like, something's new, everyone watches it, and then we brainstorm and come up with more ideas on, have you thought about this? Let's dig a little bit deeper. And then someone investigates something else and shares it. So it's a lot of fun when you have this culture of everyone wanting to share versus, it's a cutthroat sales environment where everyone wants to compete on whatever goals and targets. We're together, and that's more important for us today.
Becoming a process oriented organization requires empowering your team to create systems and processes. And I love how you're highlighting innovation and processes going hand in hand. Processes don't lead to losing innovation. Instead, it can provide opportunities to look at strengths and weaknesses and grow. So, what system has had the highest payoff for you?
I think onboarding clients and then making sure that the entire team is on the same page, because we're all remote, right? And the web developers to graphic designers to content writers are different personality traits. They don't like that face to face interaction like the sales reps do, right? So you need to really have this ongoing understanding of profiles of your people, their skill set, and then understanding the goals are in alignment. And everyone has to be clear on that. And when you start onboarding, understanding that, and we all are collectively together on the same goals for the entire campaign, you get way better results because the clients are very vocal of what they want, but your entire team is on board to support that entire drive.
Yes, I second that. Proper onboarding gets your team on the same page. And when you onboard a client seamlessly, you create a ton of trust that can increase the lifetime value of that relationship. When clients feel well taken care of from the get go, they are more likely to be a referral source early on. Speaking of selling, what else are you doing in your business to maintain and retain clients? We all know that an agency that keeps clients is more profitable and sustainable.
Yeah, so acquiring a new clients is always the most expensive cost driver. So we really emphasize on providing the best ROI, so giving them the best results and making sure retention is critical in our business. So for us, that's our main driver. To once you acquire a customer, it's more important to retain them after a first, second, third year than to just keep acquiring new clients because it's going to burn you out. Your team will get frustrated because they're always trying to understand a new set of new clients. But it's a lot easier once you're with a new client for 5 years, 6 years. You really get to know them, and so therefore you can service them well and provide the best services and the best KPIs and drivers and profit for that business.
What are some of the things that you're doing in your business to retain your clients?
We're always adding more value. We're always getting better at every single skill out there because not only do you always have to learn, there's always something new. There's always, tips and tactics and software that really helps you streamline costs or become more efficient or figure out where the gaps are. This is an ever changing industry. I feel SEO is not only is Google changing their algorithm, softwares have to adapt, content has to adapt in various formats from audio to video to images to written. There's always change. So you can't stand still. That's why I'm in the business because I need to be challenged. If it was a stagnant, traditional type industry, advertising medium, I would probably go crazy, right? So with Google, it keeps me on my toes. There's new competitors always knocking on your doorsteps. So you always have to improve and get better as well.
What is your role in your business right now?
So as a founder, owner of the business, so I'm the sole owner that bootstrapped this company. I really focus on adding value to my team now, letting them make mistakes and getting them to improve, getting them to up level. Let them know that these are some of the things that I did. Let's try to not do them, or let's try to increase the efficiency faster, right? Value add. This is what I would do. Or let them be the role of, okay, if you were the leader, what would you do? And then let them make mistakes or let them do it so that I can then take a step back and let them know, like, you did a great job. Are there gaps there? What are you frustrated with? So I'm trying to harvest them to train them to up level themselves and grow.
Thank you, John. Tell us what keeps you inspired and motivated.
I'm always curious on helping more business owners. There's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot of noise, a lot of challenges business owners have to face. And I wanted to be the good guy. I wanted to really help them, but it's hard because this is a space where there's a lot of, sales, people that are just saying a lot of things, bait and switch, a lot of people that are in and out of business really quickly. I want it to be a long-standing brand that people can trust, but I don't have multi-million-dollar budget campaigns that people can spend, like put TV ads and spend tons of money on PR. So it's slow and steady wins the race. Just keep with my ethos of values and culture of taking care of my staff, taking care of my clients, and being transparent throughout this journey of 10 years. Like, I've always let people in on my journey. They either like it or not, but hopefully they understand what makes us different and what kept us surviving for 10 years.
And where can people find you, John?
They can check our website out. It's localseosearch.ca. So we're based in Toronto, Canada. But if you do want to reach out to me directly, LinkedIn is probably the best bet. And it's John Vuong, and it's spelled Vuong.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Audrey, for having me.
Hey there, thanks for hanging out with me at the Small But Mighty Agency podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you hit the follow or subscribe button in your podcast app and share it with a friend. I'll see you on the next one.